Last season, I harvested just over 50 pounds of tomatoes from a single 5-gallon bucket on my back patio. One bucket, no raised bed, no sprawling garden row, just a $3 plastic container sitting on concrete. My neighbor has been growing tomatoes for 22 years. Full raised beds, drip irrigation, the whole setup. He pulled in maybe 35 pounds from his 4 best plants combined. More space, more equipment, more water, less food. When I told him what I'd done with one bucket, he laughed. Then he came over and saw the plant. Then he stopped laughing. This method didn't come from a gardening magazine or a YouTube channel. It came from watching an Amish family work their kitchen garden in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I was there in mid-July. Along the south wall of their barn, a row of containers. Old milk crates, wooden crates, a few buckets. Every single one absolutely loaded with tomatoes. Fruit so dense the stems were bowing under the weight, and these weren't large containers. I asked about it. The husband told me they'd grown tomatoes this way for 3 generations. His grandmother started it when space was scarce. He used a phrase I've never forgotten. We grow up, not out. That conversation changed how I think about container gardening entirely. Stay with me, because at the end I'm sharing a stripped-down version you can set up this weekend for under $15. Here's what most gardening advice skips, and it's the entire reason this method works. Tomato stems are covered in tiny hair-like structures called adventitious roots. In a humid environment, you can actually see them, little white bristles just under the skin of the stem. Every single one is a potential feeder. If that part of the stem contacts moist soil, those structures push through and become functioning roots. Real roots, pulling water, nitrogen, phosphorus, everything the plant needs to produce fruit. Standard planting gives you one root zone at the base, one engine driving all your fruit production. The Amish method buries the stem deep enough to activate root zones along its entire length. Bury 6, 8, 10 inches of stem, and instead of one small root ball, you have a root system running the full length of that buried stem. 8 to 12 inches of active rooting surface instead of 2 or 3. What does that mean for yield? The plant pulls dramatically more water and nutrients. It anchors more securely under the weight of heavy fruit. And, this is the part most people miss, a larger root system has greater capacity to supply the sugars that developing fruit demand. More roots equals more fruit. The horticultural science backs this up completely. The Amish didn't read the studies. They figured it out because they couldn't afford to get it wrong. That's the kind of pressure that produces genuinely effective technique. Now, let me show you exactly how to do this. Step 1. Choose the right container. Minimum 5 gallons. That gives you roughly 12 inches of soil depth, the floor of what this method requires. If you can go larger, do it. 7-gallon fabric grow bags consistently outperform 5-gallon buckets by 15 to 20% on yield. More root volume, better stability, less drying out. Critical. Drill at least 5 drainage holes in the bottom if your bucket doesn't have them. Waterlogged soil kills adventitious roots. Drainage is non-negotiable. One more thing. Container color matters. Black absorbs heat, which tomatoes generally love. But if your summers regularly hit 95 degrees or above, black containers can overheat the root zone. Wrap them with burlap or use light-colored containers in those climates. Step 2. Build the soil mix. This is where most container growers fail, and it's the step that makes the biggest difference. Standard potting mix is not enough. It compacts over a season and doesn't have the nutritional density to support 50+ pounds of fruit. Here's the 3-part blend. 1 part high-quality compost, dark, crumbly, earthy smelling. This is your base nutrition and soil biology. 1 part vermiculite or perlite, your drainage and aeration layer. Vermiculite releases moisture slowly, perlite drains faster. Either works. 1 part potting mix or cocoa coir binds the blend, adds texture for roots to move through. To every 5 gallons of this blend, add 2 tablespoons of balanced granular fertilizer, 10-10-10 or similar, and 1 tablespoon of garden lime. That lime is critical. Calcium deficiency causes blossom end rot, where the bottom of your tomatoes turns black. Adding calcium at planting prevents it entirely. Mix thoroughly before planting. Uneven mixing creates hot and dry spots in the root zone. Don't add wood chips, bark, or uncomposted organic matter. They rob nitrogen from the soil as they break down, right when your plant needs it most. Step 3. Choose the right variety. This decision can make or break your results regardless of everything else. You need an indeterminate variety. These keep growing and producing all season, and they respond dramatically to deep planting because their stems keep elongating and providing new root sites. Avoid determinate varieties for this method. Roma, Celebrity, Paste tomatoes. They set all their fruit in one window and stop. Deep planting won't help them much. Best varieties for this method: Brandywine. Enormous fruit, often over a pound each, exceptional flavor. Sun Gold, Cherry Tomato, outrageously productive. My top recommendation for first-timers: Cherokee Purple. Rich, complex flavor, extremely productive with aggressive root support. Jet Star, crack-resistant, forgiving of variable watering, good for beginners. Black Crim, large, slightly smoky flavor, excellent container performance. Also avoid dwarf or patio varieties. They're bred to stay small, which is the opposite of what this method rewards. Step 4. The deep planting technique. This is the core of the entire method. Your transplant should ideally be 6 to 10 inches tall. Remove every leaf and branch from the lower 2/3 of the stem. On a 10-inch plant, that means stripping the bottom 6 to 7 inches. Don't leave any leaf nodes below the soil line. Buried leaves rot and invite fungal disease. Fill your bucket 1/3 with your prepared soil mix. Place the plant in the container so that only the top 3 to 4 inches, the growing tip and the top set of leaves, will sit above the final soil surface. Everything else goes underground. Fill in around the stem, firming gently to eliminate air pockets. Leave 1 inch of space between the soil surface and the rim. This creates a small reservoir so water doesn't run off during irrigation. Water immediately and thoroughly until you see drainage from the bottom holes. Do not bury the growing tip. The plant needs photosynthetic surface from day 1. 3 to 4 inches above ground is the minimum. Step 5. Staking. Drive your stake before you plant, not after. Roots are easily damaged by stakes pushed into an established root zone. Use a heavy bamboo stake, 1 inch diameter, 6 to 8 feet tall, pushed firmly into the center of the container. As the plant grows, tie the main stem loosely every 8 to 10 inches using soft garden twine or cloth. Never wire or thin string. It cuts into the stem as it thickens. If you prefer a cage, it must be rated for indeterminate varieties, at least 5 feet tall, heavy gauge wire. The small cages at most garden centers will collapse under the weight of a productive plant. Step 6. Pruning for maximum yield. This is where the Amish approach differs most from standard home gardening, and where most of your yield potential is won or lost. Tomatoes produce lateral shoots called suckers at every junction between the main stem and a leaf branch. Left unpruned, they each become a full branch with their own suckers. Within weeks, you have a massive bushy plant with hundreds of leaves and very little concentrated fruit. The method is a single leader system, one main stem, all suckers removed. Every 3 to 4 days, check for suckers in the leaf axils. They emerge at a 45-degree angle, bright green and soft. Under an inch, pinch them with your fingernails. Over 2 inches, use clean scissors. One exception: allow one sucker to develop just below the first flower cluster. This secondary leader can carry significant additional fruit load without causing the uncontrolled branching that hurts yield. The pruning mindset shift. Every sucker you remove is energy that goes directly into the fruit already set. Unpruned plants make leaves. Pruned plants make tomatoes. Step 7. Watering inconsistency is the single biggest killer of container tomatoes. Not drought, not overwatering, inconsistency. Cycling between dry and saturated causes calcium uptake disruption, blossom end rot, fruit cracking, and flavor loss. The target: evenly moist soil throughout the entire column, not wet, not dry. Check daily. Lift the container. A dry bucket is noticeably lighter. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. Dry at that depth. Water deeply. Still moist? Skip the day. When you do water, go slow and thorough until you see drainage from the bottom. Shallow watering concentrates roots near the surface and defeats the entire purpose of deep planting. In peak summer heat, you may need to water every day, twice a day in extreme conditions. This is the main labor cost of the method, and why a drip timer is a worthwhile investment if you're scaling up. Step 8. Feeding schedule. Your soil mix feeds the plant for the first 3 to 4 weeks. After that, you're on a schedule. Week 1 to 4, no supplemental feeding. Extra fertilizer during establishment burns young roots. Week 5 through 1st, fruit set. Balanced liquid fertilizer, something like 5-5-5, every 10 to 14 days. After first fruit set, switch to a low nitrogen, higher phosphorus and potassium formula, around 3-6-6. Nitrogen drives leafy growth. Once fruit is setting, you want the energy going into the tomatoes, not the leaves. Every 3 weeks, add a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium-magnesium supplement to your watering can. Insurance against the calcium depletion that accelerates during heavy fruiting. Don't skip the fertilizer switch. My second season, I kept feeding balanced fertilizer because the plant looked so healthy. It kept making beautiful leaves and flowers, and fruit development stalled. The plant was eating nitrogen instead of ripening tomatoes. Step 9. Heat and positioning. Container plants are more vulnerable to temperature swings than in-ground plants because the entire root zone is exposed through the container walls. This is also your biggest advantage. You can move them. In spring, bring containers in on frost threat nights. You can extend your season by 2 to 3 weeks. In peak summer, if temperatures are regularly above 95 degrees, flowers will drop without setting fruit. The plant is protecting itself. Move containers to morning sun with afternoon shade during heat waves. This alone can keep fruit set going through conditions that shut down in-ground plants. Step 10. Harvest and end of season. Don't harvest by color. A tomato that first shows color needs several more days on the vine to develop full sugar and acid. A truly ripe tomato has slight give when pressed and releases with minimal effort. This is one of the genuine advantages of home growing. You can wait for real ripeness. That flavor gap between a vine-ripened homegrown tomato and anything from a store is enormous. At the end of season, don't discard your soil. A container that supported a full season of heavy production is biologically rich. Compost the plant, rest the soil over winter, top dress with fresh compost in spring. You can reuse this mix for 2 to 3 seasons. All right, I promised you a stripped-down version at the start of this video, and here it is. This is for the people who want to try this method this weekend without sourcing special materials or making a significant investment. I call this the $15 bucket setup, and it genuinely works. You won't get 50 pounds from this version on your first attempt, but you'll get results that will make you want to do the full method next season. And honestly, 30 to 35 pounds from a single container your first time out is not a bad place to start. What you need: 1 5-gallon bucket, $3 to $4 at any hardware store. 1 bag of premium potting mix, about $8. Buy the best quality available. This is your most important purchase. 1 indeterminate tomato transplant. Sun Gold is ideal for first-timers. 1 bamboo stake, 6 feet, about $1. 1 box of water-soluble tomato fertilizer, about $5. Total, under $20. Fill the bucket 2/3 with potting mix. Remove lower leaves, leaving only the top 4 inches of growth. Plant deep, firm the soil, water thoroughly. Stake immediately. Remove every sucker. This is the one step you absolutely cannot skip. Water daily or every other day. Feed every 2 weeks starting at week 5. That's the whole simplified method. You won't hit 50 pounds your first time, but 30 to 35 pounds from 1 container as a beginner is a genuinely strong result. And it'll make you want to run the full method next season. One upgrade worth making even here: add a handful of worm castings to your potting mix at planting. A few dollars at most garden centers. It adds living biology that dramatically improves nutrient availability. The single highest return upgrade from the basic setup. I want to be honest with you about my own learning curve with this method because I think it'll help you avoid the same mistakes. My first season attempting this, I used a standard potting mix, didn't build the custom blend, and I skipped the leaf removal step because it made me nervous to strip the plant down that much. I ended up with a healthy-looking plant that produced about 22 pounds. Not bad, but not what I'd hoped for, based on what I'd observed in Lancaster County. Second season, I built the soil mix correctly and did the deep planting, but was inconsistent on pruning because I got busy in June and let a few suckers run. I got 38 pounds. Third season, soil mix right, deep planting right, consistent pruning, consistent watering schedule. 51 pounds from one bucket. That was the number I mentioned at the start of this video, and it was the season where every piece of the method was in place at the same time. The learning curve is real, but it's not steep. The skills involved, mixing soil, planting at depth, pruning suckers, maintaining consistent watering, are all genuinely simple. What I got wrong the first 2 seasons wasn't difficulty. It was completeness. You need all the pieces working together. You now have everything you need to grow more tomatoes from a single container than most gardeners get from an entire raised bed. The Amish figured this out generations ago because they couldn't afford not to. Now you have it too. If this helped you, hit like. It genuinely helps reach more people trying to grow their own food. Subscribe for the next method and drop a comment. Are you trying this in a bucket, a fabric bag, or something else? I read every single one.